Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day life. Let's start with the video.
You always hear about the stereotypical toxic mommy-son relationships and mommy-daughter relationships. Mommy issues aren't translated the same for the two genders, obviously. Most of the time, the women are so harsh and abusive and negligent on their daughters, yet they would be more than happy to apply to all of their sons' requirements or desires, creating a cold and distant relationship with their daughters. That is strictly based on manipulation and emotional deprivation, strengthening the relationship with their sons to a creepy degree in which they depend entirely with their whole beings and their mental states on their mothers and how much they are able to baby them and how many hours they spend a day catering to their needs and desires. I guess the story of the relationship that my husband has with his mother, aka my mother-in-law, it's no different to that. Actually, it's entirely different from that to the point where it's the exact opposite of what is usually conventionally communicated. My husband's relationship with his mother is that of a daughter struggling to handle the insecurities and projection of negativity that my mother-in-law can't seem to be able to keep to herself and feel obliged to make her son suffer mentally as well as physically by making him subject to her critical comments about every single decision he makes in life or everything about the way he looks from head to toe to either ensure he looks put together enough but not to an extent that makes him look gay, but also not too maddily because it's too old school, but also still makes sure he looks good. So I guess in a way you could say that he got the short end of both sticks because he got the mommy issues that girls usually struggle with, and he lavishes in the mommy issues that boys are usually criticized for having. I'm not exaggerating when I say my mother-in-law is so critical to a cynical extent that it's genuinely funny to watch her ask her son who's been around and know that he had gained waiter take away cake from his hands because she tells him, and I quote, "It'll go straight to your hips," which is genuinely a scene straight out of a movie describing a toxic relationship between a girl trying to establish a personality for herself and a mother that grew up spoiled, rich, gorgeous, and can't seem to handle the fact that she is growing old and incapable of feeling and sensing the glory herself for some sadistic and horrific reason. If you thought her commenting on his looks and making him insecure as an adult and as someone who is in a married relationship to another woman that he barely is able to spell her the time of his day since his mother has such a strong grip on his life, and you would be so wrong because she still insists on subjecting him to all the toxic masculine traits that society usually inflict on its men. I remember that when we started dating, my boyfriend at the time, and now husband, would come talk to me about how his mother would be intervening in every single purchase or investment he was trying to make up the time, and now even as a married and far much more mature adult couple, we still see the potential that those investments could have had on his life, and how her toying around with his decision-making abilities and basically cock-blocking his ability to be rich is influencing him even as of now since he's not speaking to her anymore for a really good reason, which I will get into later. She's really uptight and a perfectionist in every sense of the word. And although her good eye for detail and massive interest in aesthetics and communicating her ideas and opinions can be useful at times, for example, she was of so much help in preparing and organizing the wedding, but not because we had actually asked her to do anything. She called my husband about 6 or 7 months after we announced our engagement because we had told the family that we would be getting married in no less than 2 years, and told him that she would be very extremely upset and disappointed and disgraced and dishonored by his existence as a whole if he decides that she's not the person that's going to get the honor of organizing our wedding from start to finish. As much as I would like to lie to myself and you, whoever may be reading this, and tell you that I think it was because she was trying to be nice, or had a fantasy about organizing the wedding of her only child, or even catering to her perfectionism and superiority complex, but I'm not very fond of myself, and I'm not at all the kind to lie to anyone, even though I barely think anyone's going to read this. I'm pretty convinced that the only reason she had contacted him and offered to help him organize the whole wedding was because she wanted to have a stronger and better grip over the amount of money he would be spending. and the image that it would be portraying to the invites that she would be the one controlling since she was the one organizing it from start to finish. And it was kind of a circle or a loop that allowed her to have even more grip and control over her son's life, the most important turning point of his life. And if that didn't surprise you enough, she actually confessed to having on the offer to organize the wedding because she wanted to make sure he didn't F up even more by planning a horrible wedding, which I can only decipher as her saying that the first F up he did was by choosing to marry me, which wouldn't be any different from her character or her behavior towards me because she has had a problem with us dating from the first day he brought me home. But that's a conversation for another day and a trauma that I'm not willing to unfold today. Last week, my mother-in-law barged into our home, and that most inconvenient time because my husband and I had just gotten the opportunity to get our spicy time after a long day of work, and what was initially going to be the beginning of a long and fruitful and entertaining weekend, but since my mother-in-law exists in our lives, and we are spiritually meant to be tormented by her and then haunted by her ghosts, that didn't end up happening because she knocked on our door at around 11:30 p.m. with 2 boxes of pizza and a bottle of wine and a couple of horrible jokes about how it's okay for a mother to barge into her married son's house in the middle of the night, even if it was a weekend and the only time in which married couples get to spend decent times with one another. I think that incident on its own is about enough to summarize the kind of woman she is, but only to add to it multiple snickering critical high school bullies, abusers jokes, and you have yourself a perfect portrait of the woman that I ended up bending from my home and threatening to break my marriage with my husband should he try to invade my decisions to do so. It's funny because the day she came over and started talking about how our home was so neat and clean, I thought it was going to be the one day in our lives and wish we would get to hear her say something positive, but it was only the process for her to start talking about a topic that my husband and I had expressed times and times again that we didn't want to go through because of how much pain and damage and trauma it brought upon the both of us. She started going around the extra spare rooms and talking about how it would be just time for us to start having babies, knowing dang well that we have been trying for at least 18 months to no avail, and even tried getting professional help and seeking out doctors to help with my fertility problems, and thus making my incapability of having children the only reason we didn't have them, and the only reason why we had previously specifically asked everybody in our family to not go through that topic with us. At that point, I was already very furious at the fact that she had ruined my spicy time with her cheap-ass wine and stale cold New York pizza, and was more than happy to cut the conversation short with her and ask her to get the hell out of my house, but seeing her walk around the house with the one and only purpose of cutting me as deep as she could manage and using the one thing she knew would harm me the most against me made me want nothing more than to hold her in a chokehold against the wall and watch life escape her grayish stale evil and soulless eyes as I finally get to rest in the peace of the absence of her voice for once in my goddamn effing married life. At some point or the other, I remember losing my cool entirely and opening the door wide open and telling her to get the F out of my house, mingled with a few expressions here and there that genuinely ruined the weekend experience for my husband and I as we spent it arguing about how harsh I was with her and how many other ways and options there were that I was capable of handling the situation through, but I guess to me throwing around profanities and insulting the living daylights out of her seemed like a more convenient course of actions, and honestly at that point I didn't even care about what was right or wrong or appropriate or polite because she had clearly penetrated every single line of respect and mutual appreciation that I have been trying to build with her for as long as I've been married to her son. She is more than welcome to F around with her son should he be okay with that, but I will not cater to her. I will not tailor her stupid, ridiculous, disrespectful, and despicable ways because I, on the other hand, have absolutely no reason in the world to do so and won't hesitate for a split moment to never ever speak to her ever again. Update. Genuinely wasn't expected to go so overwhelmed with the amount of comments I got. I only wrote the last post to get things off my chest and didn't even realize I hadn't told you guys what I told my mother-in-law that made even my husband mad at me. I literally threatened to stick a fork through her throat. It was one thing for her to toy her son around because she thinks, or she does have some sort of grip on him. She doesn't have anything on me, and I'd be more than happy to put an end to my relationship with her to ensure that. And I would be even happier to put an end to her life if she ever continues to trash my life and pretend like it's none of my business. Next story. My ex-fiancé passed away 2 months ago. A couple of days ago, I found out he had left all his fortune to me. His family is now very angry with me. I'm not sure if I have any obligations to return the money to his family. I met him 15 years ago. He was 35 and I was 28. He was a very shy and awkward guy. I put awkwardness in quotation marks because that's not what I thought, but what he thought he was. His mother, his sister, and his sister's children were his world. When he turned 30, he had already told his family that he had given up on the hope of meeting a partner, and that he promised he was dedicating his life to his sister and her children. He was starting up a promising business, and he was going to take care of his nephews. When we met, it was love at first sight. He's the love of my life. His mother and sister hated me from the get-go. Our personalities clashed, yes, but the main reason was because they thought he had broken his promise should he start a family. We moved in, got engaged, and set the date, but unfortunately we broke up, and I want to say it was 99% because of his family's interference and him not siding with me. We broke up after 12 years together. Under the time we were together, my ex-fiance's business took off, and he became very wealthy. When we broke up, he left me our apartment that he bought. That didn't sit well with his mother, who harassed me to the point of sending men I didn't know to wait for me outside the building to threaten me. I wasn't having any of it. I gave him back the keys and moved to my hometown. Now he had left me all of his fortune. We never really stopped loving each other, and he regretted not protecting me, but it was too late to reconcile. I just wanted to run from the horrible family. Now his sister is saying that the money is hers and her son's. I don't know, but I feel like if he wanted to give it to them, he wouldn't put me in as well. My best friend thinks I would be an a-hole if I kept the money that I had no right to. Tell me what you think. Edits. After the breakup, I cut all contact with him because I needed to get over him. From what I understood from his solicitor, he had no contact with his family after the breakup. I don't know how much he left, but it's probably between 10 to 15 million euros. School college is free here. If I leave anything to the children, it would be funds. I'm not sure if I should do it. Why didn't he? He passed away from chronic disease-related complications. It was, however, sudden, since he could live a relatively normal and long life with that disease. I have been on sick leave since I got the news, and I only left bed a week ago. I really thought we had our whole life to find our way back to each other. I miss him, his smile, and his sense of humor. He didn't leave any letter or anything to me. I wish he did, but I don't think he had the time. Not the a-hole. He legally left his fortune to you, and likely for very good reason. His family sounds awful. Someone related to them has died and all they care about is money. He sent a clear gesture to you that he loved you up until the end. I would start making a journal of when they harass you and try to get a restraining order. Have a cease and desist letter sent. I wouldn't give them a dime. It wasn't their money to begin with. It was his, and if he wanted to donate it all to charity or throw it off a bridge or set up a massive party in Vegas for his friends after he passed, that's his choice. They're not entitled to any of it. Not the a-hole. Please, for the love of God, do not give a penny to his horrendous family. I'm genuinely disgusted by their behavior. Block them everywhere and never talk to them again. His last wish was for you to receive the money. If they truly loved him, they would respect his wish. Not the a-hole. You guys are together 12 years, and if it weren't for them, you'd be married. He wanted to leave it to you. It's weird AF to devote your life to a sibling and their kids because you think you'll never meet someone. Prepare to fight it in court, but 12 years is a long time, and your state might have common law marriage laws. If you live together that long, sometimes the court sees it as a marriage even if you're never legally married. Here's the next story. Long story short, F, 39, married to M, 42 for 19 years before we got divorced. This was a Muslim arranged marriage. We have 4 kids, F13, M15, F16 twins. Before we got divorced, I had found his mobile phone and seen some strange messages from someone with some explicit comments about nights out and how they are looking forward to meeting up next. Name on the phone was generic Alexi. I left the phone on the bed and went and spoke to a friend of mine the next day who also knew my husband and said he would find out who this Alexi was after work. Turns out Alexei was a man, and my husband had been having an affair with him. This was outside their workplace and they were co-workers. Confronted my husband and he told me that the only reason he married me was to get his parents and family off his back, and that he had been seeing other men over the years. Alexei for the last 3.5 years. He said it was a relief that he could finally tell me and that he wanted me to stay with him so his family would not cut him off along with the kids. Kicked him out and filed for divorce. The divorce took a few months and he did fight it and tried to keep the marriage intact. This was a sham marriage from the start. At one point he told me not to tell the kids why this was happening and just tell them that our marriage was not working out. I told him they have a right to know and told them about the affairs and the reason. His parents asked me and I told the truth. His family have disowned him. His extended family have disowned him, and his kids will not speak to him. He can't return to his country as homosexuality is against the law, and he risks being arrested. He told me I have ruined his life, and that he has no family anymore, and he is on his own. I told him it's not my problem, as he had used me for 19 years, and that I was nothing more than an instrument to keep his family at bay because of his sexuality. His friends have called me an a-hole for exposing him to his family and community and making him an outcast to everyone that he cared about, and making his kids resent him and want nothing to do with him. Edit update. For the few who seem to be posting, it was a forced marriage. It was not, and we had spoken all the way up to the wedding. He had many opportunities to walk away, and I could have been shown a different suitor. The kids asked for the reason, and I was not going to lie to them. I don't know what about most people, but I am not going to lie for someone else, and my kids deserve to know the truth. Not going to let him twist things. His parents and mine tried to mend things, and the only way they would stop was when the truth was told. They are still in the lives of their grandkids, and they love their grandparents. They just don't speak with their dad because to them he is a cheating piece of shiz. In their words, not because he is gay. Also tested and I am fine. Last of all, thank you all. Not the a-hole. Funny how Reddit flip-flops so much. If he cheated with a woman, you would have way more support. It sucks that he was outed, but it also sucks that he used you for 19 years to hide that he was gay. He played you for 19 years living a double life. He does not get to throw in your face he used you, and then expects no consequences. He can be the victim at his own pity party. Not the a-hole. Some of these you're the a-hole folks on this thread, their logic is delusional and astounding. Oh, you can't out him no matter what, even if he used you, something like that. Being LGBTQ is not an excuse to be an asshole and hurt people, and you're the a-hole folks don't bother responding to my comment, I won't reply back. Shame on you for making excuses for her ex-husband just cause of his sexual orientation. He used this woman. She's a human too with feelings. She didn't willingly sign up to be a beard.